Okay, I want to welcome everyone to the February meeting of the Mayor's Commission for Citizens with Disabilities for the City of Omaha. I want to welcome our television audience and our guests and interpreters. Um, uh, our liaison with Human Rights and Relations and I are working on getting our television broadcast reestablished on channel 22 of Cox. So with any luck, we were able to get together with the director at KPAO and sit down and have a little heart-to-heart about getting that going again. Otherwise, you might be seeing this on the mayor's website under the Mayor's Commission um, uh, as a YouTube video, and that'll work too. If you go to the Disability Commission's website at www.cityofomaha.org, click on the mayor's office, then click on the Disabilities Commission, it'll take you right there. I do want to remind you a little bit about our mission and purpose. Our goal is primarily to represent persons with disabilities and their families to the City of Omaha leadership. Our main objective is to promote the quality of life, accessibility, and equity in all aspects related to the city on behalf of and in cooperation with the citizens of Omaha who experience disabilities. And to this end, we work to advise and assist the mayor, the city council, city department heads, other personnel on issues of access, representation, employment, housing, and quality of life that affect and impact our citizens with disabilities and their families. We attempt to serve as a resource for Omaha citizens with disabilities in getting their concerns and resolutions I'm starting too fast, to express the concerns and achieve resolutions regarding issues that affect them. We try and publicize our role to the citizens of Omaha, in particular, persons with disabilities, employers, housing representatives, business owners, and so forth, in terms of those who have a role in bettering the life of Omaha citizens. We work to promote awareness of the general public on the capabilities, needs, and desires of persons with disabilities. We have worked to recognize the efforts of employers, businesses, and other organizations who have demonstrated outstanding support of programs and services for persons with disabilities and their families. We attempt to advocate for accessibility and implement plans and projects to improve services for persons with disabilities. And we have in the past and hope to in the future review and implement plans and projects for advocating for persons with disabilities in the city of Omaha. We had a pre-meeting. We talked quite a bit about some issues related to access to some parts of the city, and in this case in particular the Henry Dorley Zoo. We also talked about our plan for the year and getting some folks in here to present. One of our goals is to get information out to the people that it affects, information on disability services, supports, advocacy, etc., through our broadcasts. I don't know if we have a quorum present. Do we have a quorum present? I don't think we do. I think at least at this point we found that we did not have a quorum present. We did talk about our meeting in January and our plans for the next 6 to 8 months. So that was, I think, the most of that. We do have minutes. We didn't go through the process of approving them, but we're following them anyway because that's just how we are. And so we have a couple folks who are going to be presenting today. The first is Ms. Hannah Tomeo from the Angel Guardians, Inc., who will be talking about some of the work that Angel Guardians is doing related to training around ensuring safety for persons who are having behavioral difficulties in the community. Later, we'll have folks on to talk a little bit more about this issue related to the Henry Dorley Zoo, and then members' activity announcements, time permitting. So at this point, if I can invite you up, Hannah, and you can tell us about the project that you're working on, I believe with the state, correct?
We are working with the Douglas County Commissioners
Okay.
with this project. We are funded through ARPA funds.
Thank you.
So, yes, thank you. No, I sure didn't. Okay. So, my name is Hannah Tamayo, and I'm with Angel Guardians, Inc. We are an organization with a mission to foster abilities, increase access to, and create opportunities for inclusion. Okay, close it. Yep. Okay.
Just in case.
Thank you. Um, so with our mission, what we're doing is we are working to serve the Omaha community, the greater Omaha metro, in serving individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities, and creating an inclusive community for people with and without disabilities to thrive within. So I did hand out some information, an info sheet about Angel Guardians if you're interested in hearing more about us, and my card's in there as well. So we are starting a MANT training initiative. As I mentioned, we were given ARPA funds through Douglas County. And so I wanted to just go through starting with what MANT is. So if you haven't heard of MANT, it is a training system that's designed to lessen conflict and prevent incidents from occurring, in this case for people with disabilities in the community. Okay. We'll try this a third time. We got it now. So there are three parts to the MANT system, which is prevention, de-escalation, and intervention. Through this funding, we would be teaching the greater Omaha community the prevention and de-escalation portions of MANT. So being able to prevent crisis situations from happening, learning how to de-escalate somebody when they are starting to become escalated, and showing those behaviors. And then the intervention portion is something we wouldn't be teaching to the greater Omaha community. I know we had a chance to talk about this at the beginning a little bit. Just as a liability, that wouldn't go to the greater community, but if we did have members of the community who are with an organization or needed to be trained in that area, we would be able to have special sections and days of training for them. So this is just a graph that shows basically what the MANT model is. So it shows you how there's trigger, escalation leading to crisis, and then bringing someone down from crisis, de-escalation, stabilizing them, and going through that process. So we found a need in the community. There was a major event that happened that I'm sure this room is very aware of. Last summer, unfortunately, there was a fatality at a bowling alley after an altercation with an individual with a disability and one of the bowling alley staff members. So the big thing with MANT and the large thing that we're trying to accomplish is how we prevent situations like that from happening. How can we inform the community about the best ways to work with somebody with a disability and help them go through or prevent crisis rather than escalating to this point where we're seeing unfortunate and unnecessary fatalities occur. So just to go through the trainers, these are individuals working at Angel Guardians who will be training the material. We have Sam Comfort, our executive director. He has worked in the field for about 20 years and has extensive experience with working with individuals with disabilities, vocational training, and of course de-escalation. Myself, I've been in the field for about 15 years now, grew up in the field or working closely to it, and also excited to be able to bring that material to Omaha. All of our staff members have started with a direct support role. Even, we have our director of IT and facilities on here. He has a daughter with disabilities and is actively engaged with her and working through that. So it's something that we all have had the opportunity to provide that direct care and to have that experience, and we understand the role that a direct support professional can play in the daily life of an individual with disabilities, or even caregivers and community members. So the goal with our training is to have 400 individuals trained by the end of this year. So that's something we're actively starting on March 12th and 13th. I do have a flyer in your information packets as well. March 12th and 13th is when we're starting our first session for MANT training, and we'll be hosting sessions throughout the year to reach our goal of having 400 individuals trained in MANT. So the opportunities this brings, we do want to be able to share MANT and de-escalation information with like-minded agencies. Angel Guardians strongly believes in having community partners and that it's not just us serving this community. We want to be able to share information, resources with the community and with other agencies. Community partnerships not limited to intellectual and developmental disability providers. We have had interest from agencies like the YMCA who have said, you know, we do have individuals who come in and begin to get escalated, and we'd like to know what to do in those scenarios. So once again, broadening that horizon for the community as a whole. We'd also be training independent providers and other interested parties in the community. So if you or somebody you know is interested in going through the MANT training program, I will preface that we just changed this form today so that it would work a little bit better, so it looks a little bit different than this. But if you go to angelguardians.org/MANT, you'd be able to fill out a form and get registered for the MANT trainings that we have coming up. Any questions for me?
Just a couple for like detail wise, about how many people per session are you thinking, you know, that it might be limited to?
So we would be able to host, each trainer can host 20 people. And so we're planning on having 2 trainers at a time, so 40 people per session.
Great. And are there any restrictions or limitations as to who is able to participate?
At this time, because we're not going through the full certification, because we're leaving out that intervention piece, there wouldn't be limitations to who would be able to attend because we're not fully certifying individuals. We're giving those components and pieces and training to. There would be limitations as far as who we'd be able to fully certify just because of the liability associated with it.
Okay. And then how long would the trainings go? So if someone signs up, how long should they plan on each day to be with you?
Yeah, so typically they'll run from about 9 to 4, so about 7 hours each day, and then we make the commitment for having those first 2 sessions, so 2 days.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah.
I have a question. Are they
Yeah.
always on the weekend?
We are actually looking at doing a variety of courses because we understand that a lot of people won't be able to either make during the week or the weekends, so they won't be limited just to the weekends. And we want providers and other agencies to be able to send people during the week as well.
One last question.
Yeah.
If someone participates in this, and then they are able to qualify for the entire certification, would these 2 days be recognized if they did the final training through you guys at a later date, so there would be a completion?
Yes.
Of it?
Yep. We will give the full trainings on days 1 and 2, and so then the 3rd day would be that intervention piece, and so that would all qualify towards that. Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So I apologize if you said this and I just missed it, Hannah, but how many trainers will you be running?
So we are anticipating having 2 trainers at a time.
Okay.
And that will be able to serve a group of 40 individuals.
And And so the staff that are participating in this, are they certified now, or are you in the process of that?
We are in the process of it right now. We
Okay.
actually have we have one individual who is trained, two individuals being trained actually this week,
Okay.
and then the final two instructors will be trained at the at the end of March.
Okay. And a second question, knowing that the circumstances you described of the unfortunate passing of an individual with disabilities due to restraint, my understanding was that the restraint was implemented not by necessarily people who work in the disability arena, but by members of the public. Is there any attempt in this to try and do some public outreach in terms of the opportunity to be trained in this?
Yeah, absolutely. That's where we want to be able to reach out to members of the public who may not otherwise have the opportunity to receive this training because, as you mentioned, it was somebody from the public that was responsible or that did carry out the restraint. So being able to offer alternative methods is what we want to be able to do. That prevention and de-escalation, those tactics that can help work with individuals in the community. So yeah, we absolutely encourage the general public to take these courses.
Do you have some specific strategies that you're pursuing to that end, or?
So the MANT system goes through the entire strategies used to help de-escalate. Oh, sorry.
No, I meant in terms of doing public outreach.
Oh, okay. Yes. So we're working with community partners that we currently have and other agencies to try to get the word out there, as well as using things like social media, marketing, and whatnot. That being said, there's always room for ideas and for more involvement to get the information out there. We're definitely still seeking ways to get the information out there and available.
Sorry, this is Lisa Sherman again. I have another question. Not moving on beyond this, but the services that you offer. I was looking at your little pamphlet that you put together in these folders. Would it be safe to assume that since you're an organization that's focusing on the MAT training that is kind of geared towards individuals that kind of have trouble self-regulating, frustration, anxiety, and aggression, would that mean that as your agency and your function, that you would be able to serve individuals or children that reach that need that extra help in that criteria? Or would the programs that you offer be more geared towards individuals that don't have problems self-regulating in those areas?
Yeah, so for Angel Guardians in particular, yeah, so we serve a variety of individuals. Every person that we do get a referral for, we take on a case-by-case basis. So we review that information, whether or not the behaviors that person has is something that we have the staffing and availability to handle, and then address that from there. So looking at every component. So there's not really a blanket answer to that necessarily, and I know that's really inconvenient, but we serve a variety of individuals with different abilities when it comes to regulating themselves. So,
but what I'm hearing from you is families, care providers, agencies should be encouraged to reach out to you and begin that conversation with you. And because there are a lot of agencies and organizations that are not geared towards children and individuals with these concerns. But I'm hearing you say definitely reach out, start the process, begin the conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. In Angel Guardians in particular, we have services that are strictly for adults with disabilities. However, it's something where we'd love to provide those resources for whether it's a child or adult or at any level that we can provide that resource for families. So yes, absolutely.
Others with questions for Hannah? I'm looking at I'm looking up there, but they're all right there too, so. Any of the folks online?
No. Thank you so much, Hannah.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate your time.
Well, I had another question. I
Oh,
just wanted to
yes.
give them the first shot. So how do you see the rollout proceeding from here, Hannah? I mean, you've talked about, you're getting your folks up to speed. How often do you think you're going to be offering? And how long is this project intended to last?
Yeah. So we are intending to train 400 people by the end of 2022. And so that will look like essentially having at least one of these courses each month. And so on our website, we'll keep up to date with what dates those look like and what sessions we have available. As we get everybody trained, it has been a little bit trickier to nail down dates, so that's kind of in progress. But yeah, so hosting once a month from now until the end of the year to reach, if we can fill those sessions, about 40 people per session would get us to that 400 mark. And then from here, we have our first round on March 12th and 13th. So being able to see what the community needs, what questions they have, and being able to address those so that we're meeting the needs of the community as best we can. And then really reaching out and finding those agencies who have interest and can see the need for this sort of program.
Do you think there's any discussion that needs to happen or is happening around going farther with this? 400 people sounds like quite a few to start with but when you start talking about over 5,000 people in community-based IDD services in the state, and knowing that there's a percentage that experience regulatory or behavioral challenges, and knowing that as a state we probably haven't always distinguished ourselves in terms of providing the best habilitative and support services for those individuals. Thoughts in terms of where we might go from here?
Yeah, absolutely. As an agency, we have discussed the potential for this to develop into another branch of service, essentially having trainings available for families, caregivers, and community members that are invested in the population of individuals with disabilities. So I think that there's definitely potential to continue on and to increase the training we have available to the community. So that's something that Angel Guardians is heavily considering and very interested in providing to the community.
Well, and I think to kind of add on to that, one key element is because of the funding that was able to be obtained, these 400 are at no cost to the people participating. And so you're assessing that kind of aspect moving on in terms of ongoing trainings, funding opportunities, how to make it affordable are still being assessed. Yes. That's accurate?
Yes, absolutely.
And I'm going to ask you to just also, as we're talking about things that are going on, tell us a little bit, because I was going to mention it, but you'll speak to it better. Tell us a little bit about the event going on with the agency in partnership with Connecco this month.
Oh, yes. So as I'm sure everybody knows, March is Developmental Disability Awareness Month. And so we were fortunate enough to be able to secure a partnership with Connecco. And we have a show called Mutualism coming up. Opening day is March 24th. And we're going to be there from 6 to 8 p.m. on that night, hosting and greeting people. Also having artists from our community, from the artworks group that is part of Angel Guardians, come to talk about the artwork. We'll have a very nice presentation that night as well. But from March 24th to April 24th, that exhibit will be up at Connecco, and we're very fortunate to be able to have that. So thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah, it's exciting. And one last question, at least for me. You mentioned that for people to sign up or, go to angelguardians.org/mant.
Mhm.
But what if they're just looking for more? Is there more information about what this is on there, or does that form then trigger information out, or how?
So there is on that page, there is more information or just listing out if somebody's unfamiliar with what MANT is. So describing the need for it and why exactly we're hosting it. So that is on that page. And then things like the future dates and whatnot, if you fill out a form, that's how you'll get that information until it's available on our website.
It's probably worth mentioning for those who need it that MANT is actually spelled MANDT, just in case you're wanting to look it up on or Google it yourself, because there's quite a bit of information out there. It's been a program that's been in place, that's been in development for decades. So
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's a great one that's out there. There are a few different programs, and this one so heavily focuses on de-escalation and preventing incidents from occurring. I believe it's 17% of the curriculum is focused on the intervention piece, so it really focuses on what you can do before reaching that crisis stage. So,
as it should, absolutely.
yeah.
Thank you. Other questions for Hannah? If I might, I won't stay up on my soapbox long, but I've actually worked in this field for a few years and worked clinically with adults and children with co-occurring intellectual and developmental disabilities and behavioral disorders or mental health disorders. And just because someone lacks the skills or lacks the treatment they have needed in order to live in the community and benefit from the community doesn't mean they should be excluded from the community. And so I think it's incumbent on the service systems, on the state, on the city, wherever you might be looking, that we try and ensure that the capacity is put in place. And why I so welcome what you're doing, Hannah, to ensure that those individuals get the support they need to be successful, because that's really what it's all about. We work with our clientele to help them experience success, and nothing breeds success like success. I mean, in terms of moving forward. So what you're talking about is not a little deal. And we're not talking about the majority of persons with disabilities by any stretch. We're talking about a small percentage. But we're talking about a small percentage that tend to be marginalized and kind of left behind a little bit because they're challenging. They take resources. But the technology's there. And if I had to learn it, and just about anybody could. So I really congratulate you and want to thank you for your efforts on that, you and Sam and your crew at Angel Guardian. So thanks very much.
Thank you very much. We're looking forward to hosting the trainings and getting everyone involved. So
It'll be awesome.
appreciate it.
For those listening and or watching, if there are questions, how does someone reach you?
Yeah, so my email is Hannah, HANNAH, @angelguardians.org. Feel free to also go to our website for more information or, reach out.
If one Googles Angel Guardians Omaha, you're pretty easy to find.
Yes, that's very true.
Awesome. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Hannah.
Thanks so much.
Okay, moving along, in terms of old business, I think I mentioned that we had our planning meeting last month, and there's I guess it's no longer a draft plan in place for what we're going to be doing in the coming year, or the coming, I should say, 6 to 8 months. I was shooting for a year, but that's as far as the notes got me, was about 6 to 8 months. But we'll be meeting again to make some decisions about who else to have come in. But we have some really great ideas, I think, coming from our meeting from the membership in terms of the issues of, and now it's time for your glasses, Mark, expanding our scope, public safety, accessibility, workforce readiness, pedestrian safety, employment, housing, and other things. So our goal is that over the next 6 to 8 months, we will be having a series of presenters to speak to those issues. And my hope is that it will be informative and allow folks to get information that will help them be successful in their daily lives. In terms of new business, I want to welcome Charlene Trout, who came to the commission with some accessibility concerns. Are you with us, Charlene?
Yes, accessibility and concerning discrimination that I've been uncovered and experienced.
If you'd like, you had talked about having a statement to make. That would be most welcome at this point.
I'm sorry, I couldn't quite hear you.
You had talked about a statement or do you, a conversation, whatever.
Well, I think I will go, if it's okay. I have 3 areas I want to touch on, and
Sure.
I'll just read through
Please.
them unless somebody wants to stop me for some reason.
Okay, thank you.
You bet. The first issue actually was regarding the zoo, and we worked through that pretty well to take it to the next step. So I'll kind of skip all of those details.
Well, if I
the
could
next
stop,
is-
before you go on,
The
Charlene,
next is,
I
I'm
would-
sorry.
I'm sorry too, but I would go ahead and just list maybe briefly your concerns because that was before this part of the meeting. And so we want to make sure it kind of gets on the record.
Okay, fine. When I was a child, my family and I visited Riverview Park Zoo. That's what Henry Doorly was to begin with. I've been to Henry Doorly many times through the years with my own kids, my own family. Since I've been disabled due to 2 injuries, one to each of my legs, a lot of things changed for me. I first of all lost my job. They pressed me to quit because they didn't think my disability would fit in, basically. But when it comes to the zoo, I have tried to get admission passes there for a long time. They give them to the library, and they each have a handful, and they email people and say, hey, we've got some free passes. I've tried to get out there and do that, but I can't scramble like most people. And it's a serious problem to get a free pass. But before going out this last time, I called the zoo about scooter cost. They cost $30. So even with a free pass, I can't, and no other disabled people can go to the zoo for less than $30. And that to me is rather insulting. It's ridiculous. So I have actually been in touch with your offices in the past, about 4 years ago, but I just started hunting around on the internet and I found MCCD. So after talking to the zoo and getting this information, I emailed Gerald and he said he wanted to hear all about it. And so we corresponded by email. And then I met with both him and Catherine a couple of weeks ago there at the Civic Center. It's basically that when you are disabled and free passes don't help, it still costs $30, let's say for myself, to go to the zoo. I haven't been to the zoo because of injuries for 19 years. I would love to go to our zoo. If you can't walk, the passes don't help. This can be hurtful. You feel really, really left out on this. So I am calling on Omaha Henry Doorly Zoo to eliminate the cost for accessibility to the zoo. And do this permanently, not just temporarily, and not to raise admission prices to compensate. Also to a new creative way, a new method for distribution of free passes to make them available to everyone in a dignified way. And my thoughts are they have many supporters of the zoo. If a grant or new and increased donations are the answers, then please do it speedily. That kind of sums it up where my opinions about the zoo.
Very good, thank you.
You bet. The next issue is our beautiful Omaha Douglas Civic Center. I know that I'm probably telling all of you what you already know, but let it just come from my experience. It takes 15 minutes each way. for me to walk the distance between parking and the building. I wouldn't have been able to visit the center without Gerald's and Catherine's help. They actually walked with me. Otherwise, I would have fallen at some point along the way. A wheelchair is very difficult on the ramp, especially for someone by himself or herself. There should be benches to rest on, in my opinion here. The railings strategically placed to steady people needing the additional help. Crutches and walkers become dangerous in a revolving door. Outside doors should always be automatic. The escalators, both Gerald and Catherine can attest, are terrifying to me in the getting on and the getting off. Perhaps a short alternate route would help. Both this building and the courthouse needs more than one wheelchair, and employees should know exactly where they're located. My second concern is the ADA. In 2018, I submitted 2 separate complaints using ADA discrimination complaint forms online. One concerned the Douglas County Courthouse, which is a nightmare to cross if you can't walk very well, and the other regarding Walmart, Family Fair, and a 36th Street mall at 36 and L. I received only one reply about the mall where I fell outside. A person was sent from the ADA to check it out. They called me back saying they saw no problem. I then asked them if they took a disabled person with them for their viewpoint. After a long pause, they said no, but that would have been a good idea. I never heard from them again. The ADA told me in the past that the problems I brought to their attention weren't on their agenda and to check back the next year. That just kind of, well, it really did just leave me flat on having anything changed or attention brought to that situation or any of those situations. The third issue is on discrimination. I shop for myself to maintain independence, and I need an electric cart. They should be available and plentiful in all places, but they are not. I'm very frequently turned away from buying groceries because carts aren't available. They aren't charged. They show ready lights when not fully charged, and no one bothers to plug them in. There is a strong bias against using the carts. A prime example of disability discrimination, one of many that is literally harming the health and well-being of the physically disabled, is Walmart. Whether or not they can be stopped, the existence of discrimination must be made known. I have exhausted myself from over 12 years trying to reason with them. After a cart broke down again in the middle of the store at 128th and L Street, I suggested that employees who stood at the entrance could just plug in the carts. The store manager looked me in the eyes and said, and I quote, "Walmart doesn't care about people like you," unquote. Maybe he thought I'd be hurt enough to go away. He's the only one actually who has ever been honest about this business. Others condescend and make false promises. In the month of February, carts broke down 3 times for me at 50th and L. I have to flag someone down, transfer my groceries to another cart if it's available. Most days they have 2 carts and one is broken down. I am forced to use a regular cart as a crutch. I have to forget about buying food and make my way to the car. One of these Walmarts here in Omaha actually taped over electrical outlets to prevent them from being plugged in. Family Fair said others in the stores were customers. These actions are directed at the physically disabled every day. We can't make people care or even change inside, but strong standards can be raised, so they must comply. Here is the fact. Walmart and others exist here, and they are discriminating against the disabled in word, deed, and attitude. No one under any circumstances should be turned away from buying food or anything else. I have received input from someone saying Nebraska Furniture Mart ignored her and her mother, who was in a wheelchair, while shopping for furniture. They had no choice to leave after an hour of waiting. It wasn't a full store. Others were waited on, but not them. She said salespeople ignored them and walked around them. My questions are many, but why does this happen? Do they assume they really had no money because of the wheelchair? How does that even relate? The disabled are being discriminated against just because. The effect on their self-respect and well-being can cause a person to give up, become inactive, and even reluctant to speak up for themselves. Experience these things on a continual basis and see if you aren't fighting for your dignity. My boldness comes from being a victim advocate, and it comes from being degraded, dismissed, pressured, and rejected. It comes from talking to other disabled people who also bear increased pain, physically and emotionally. Many are inflicted with more handicaps into their lives than they already have. These things do not promote well-being and safety in our city. They create barriers to growth, taking part, and quality of life. The question is, what are we going to do about blatant discrimination of the disabled in our city? If Walmarts and others continue, which they will, without being faced head-on, any efforts by this great commission will mean very little. You can improve accessibility, which is tremendous. But the need is also there to look deeply at underlying circumstances and conditions where the disabled are being brought down without consequences to those who dare to do so. MCCD will be helping people out of offensive climates and restrictive environments. The reward will be more involvement, greater health, and more independence and increased confidence. You have my support because I trust our mayor and the commissions set up to make a difference. Omaha has a genuine call to change people's lives, and I urge all of us to be worthy of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Charlene. There's plenty of food for thought there, and even more food for action. So,
Good.
as you mentioned, we had talked about your concerns about what's going on with Henry Dorley. That's probably, I'm guessing, where we'll start, but it sounds like there's more work to be done. So, what I would do is, we'll endeavor to take a look at some of this and stay in touch. But I would not. I would encourage you to stay in touch with us as well to see
I will.
What kind of progress we're able to make on some of these. You gave us, that was quite a list.
Yeah, I know.
I
This is 12 years worth.
This-
But a lot of this, most of this is going on right now.
well,
This is Nancy. This is Nancy. I was just wondering, do
Nancy.
we have a copy of Charlene's presentation of all the things that she listed?
I can send one to you.
And I
That would
took
be most
I
helpful.
took pretty detailed notes too of what all she listed as well.
Okay. But I do think that, for us to capture that and just be able to sit down and make a plan of how we're going to address those things.
Mhm.
Because Charlene is being a voice for a lot of people that are experiencing these same types of situations. But, oftentimes people feel like it won't make a difference to say anything, or they just get so downtrodden because no one ever listens. And so I think, that we have to make it a point to raise the awareness of this issue and check their accountability about what they're going to do, whether it's the Walmarts or whatever, we need to be addressing those things.
Thank you,
Agreed.
Nancy.
Thank you, Nancy.
Charlene, this is Lisa Sherman, and I just want to thank you for reaching out to us, but also being present today, for reading your statement. It takes courage to take it to such a public forum. And know that we are committed to advocate for you as powerfully and as strongly as we can. But as a mother of children with special needs, I want to thank you for raising your voice and giving us an ability to advocate and to partner alongside of you. Your voice, it defends my children. So thank you very, very much.
I'm very touched. Thank you.
Others?
Charlene, we really
Go
appreciate
ahead.
you and you taking the time to bring this, all these thoughts, feelings, and situations that you've experienced.
It hasn't been easy putting all that together, but it sure comes from my heart. And there are even things that I couldn't fit into a 10-minute presentation. But this brings out the worst of it, I think.
Well, none of it, it's all important, and it all fits into the work that we're all trying to achieve as not only a commission, but once we leave here and we're off into our different roles. It impacts everything that we're doing, so greatly appreciated, Charlene.
Thank you all very much for your support. I appreciate it more than I can express.
So we'll get that on, per Nancy's suggestion, we'll get that on the agenda for a future discussion. I keep looking up there.
I can send that to Catherine, or who should I send that to?
If you send it to Kat, yeah, that'll work fine. She's our.
Okay.
She keeps us in line, so. That was a joke. I'm working on it. Although it was a very accurate joke. So at this point, we're starting to run a little bit down on time. I did want to give folks a chance to make any announcements in terms of the activities and issues they're either dealing with or about to get into, or any, pretty much anything that they have going on. I'll start to my right with Megan, because she always has something.
So I will reinforce our speaker Hannah's information. The Angel Guardians Artworks program partnered with Kaneko to create an art exhibit that will be on display. Opening night is March 24th, and it'll run from March 24th to April 24th. And on March 24th is the kind of unveiling where you can hear from the artists about the art and the process. The other one happens to also be Kaneko, and it's a little bit ways down the road, but April is Autism Awareness Month, and Kaneko partnered with the Whites Foundation and Autism Action Partnership and a lot of other really cool people, and created the Common Senses Festival, where you can go and explore interactive exhibits and explore just how your sensory systems react and respond to movement and color and all these different things. So that is all of April, starting April 4th, open to the public, both events at Kaneko.
Thanks, Megan.
Thank you, Megan.
Lise? Nothing to add? Steph?
I just want to put out there that Outlook Enrichment has a really fun rock wall climbing event happening on March 19th. You can go to outlook.en.org in order to register for that, and that is at Approach Climbing Gym. So it'll be a really fun adaptive recreation activity that we have going on coming up.
Thanks, Steph. Rachel? Nothing on your end? Nancy?
No, nothing.
Okay. Just a couple things on my end. One is a few people have mentioned that starting tomorrow we're at Developmental Disabilities Awareness Month, so that's big stuff for us at the Monroe Meyer Institute. The other thing that I'll mention is, well, there's two things. One is that still trying to put together a report from this last year. We've made progress, but it's just a lot. So that should be coming. Then the other thing was I did an interview with KPAO for the Human Rights and Relations Board broadcast with, I can't see, it's Lori O'Brien and Laura Ariete. And that seemed to go really well. It was just another chance to kind of get us out there. But then we were able to speak with the director of that TV station and talk about ensuring that the Mayor's Commission for Citizens with Disabilities is on the air, because I still get questions from folks that I know that follow the commission and enjoyed the broadcasts and would like to see them come back. So still pursuing that. Anything else for the good of the cause?
I did have one thing actually. I'm
ahead,
not
Rach.
sure if maybe someone mentioned it already. I'm sorry if I missed it, but has anyone mentioned the walk and roll for disabilities? That is in March 6th.
I don't think so.
Okay. Well, there is it is going to be Sunday, March 6th at OP Mall from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. And it's the 18th annual walk and roll for disabilities. They encourage everyone to wear masks. And it's a big fundraiser hosted by the Meyer Foundation. So if you go to mfdisabilities.org, you can learn all about the Meyer Foundation and what they do to help individuals with disabilities live independent lives.
Thank you, Rachel. I'm really glad you brought that up. I might not have been able to go to work tomorrow if that didn't get mentioned on the broadcast, since that's where I'm located. But anyway, I want to thank our presenters and my fellow commissioners, and we'll look forward to talking to you next month. We're trying to get a representative of Mecca to come talk to us about the park changes to the downtown Omaha area. So thanks very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Nice to
Thank
see
you,
you.
everyone.